Welcome, everybody, to the January 7th edition of Trips and Traps, the first edition of the new year, the actual new year. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
We got 6 races on tap in 2 segments, the usual procedure here for Trips and Traps. So let's get started. We'll start off with a race, one of the last few races from 2008. It was race number 5 on December 31st, and we're taking a look at the 8-horse Our Royal Affair, who came into this race a slight favorite off of some good form in Jersey.
Yeah, you know, you never really know what to do with these horses coming in from out of town. And what's a couple interesting things about this race. The horses that finished 1, 2, 3, they're the 3 that we're going to show at the back of the pack right now, the 2, 7, and 8 in this race, and that's Great Emperor, the 2 who wins, the 7 Coach Butts who runs second, the 8 Our Royal Affair runs third, and the pace basically collapsed here, except for one horse, San Nan, who's on the lead here. He actually finishes a pretty close 4th, while the other 2 speeds run 8th and 9th.
Yeah, San Nan actually turning back on distance too. I think 1 at a mile on the main track, and then turning back here to 6 furlongs. So a little bit of a tricky race here for San Nan. He's going to hang on gamely here, but we're still kind of a little bit more interested in the horses that are toward the back of the pack now. You can still see that they're all back there, and beginning to make a 4-wide move is Our Royal Affair, who went off the 3-1 favorite in here. When you break down the race, and you're going to see where the winner came from, the 2 Great Emperor. Great Emperor's on the rail right now, just in behind Our Royal Affair. When you break down the race, I think you'd have to agree that Our Royal Affair is probably the best horse in the race.
Yeah, I would agree. Not only does he make the wider move, but he also makes the first premature move here. And when you get closers, it's how well you time your move. And Coach Butts is on the outside there in last, actually. He's 3 wide, and Great Emperor gets a very good ride here by Victor Santiago coming up the fence to win this race. And you could say he gets a little bit lucky, but, you know, you take your chances, and when you're riding horses at bigger prices, you have to. And Our Royal Affair, actually, who made that big outside move, and the premature move, he actually finishes up pretty well. And Coach Butts, who's well back, makes that belated run that gets him his usual favorite spot of second.
Yeah, I would have to think that if the situations were reversed, perhaps if Our Royal Affair was in the spot that even Coach Butts was in, not even saying that he had to have the ride that Great Emperor got saving ground all the way. If he had the ride that Coach Butts got, he probably wins the race here.
Yeah, it is a question of these races, how you break them down. And this was a race where, obviously, being towards the front was not an advantage. And the farther back you were, it seemed to work out. And the last move, Coach Butts made the last move, and he just fell short. Great Emperor getting the very good ride. But San Nan, in a lot of ways, he's the horse you might want, certainly of the speeds out of this race. And you may want to elevate any speed, but Our Royal Affair, all things given, ran the best race.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Let's get on to the second race now. And this was December 31st, race number 6, just one race after that race we showed. And we talked about this a little bit on Inside Racing. If you watched that, the Vinman and Silver Ferrari here in this race.
Yeah, this was a race that a lot of interesting stuff happened. First of all, you see Miss Omoto, who's the favorite in this race, breaking towards the inside and going up the lead. Towards the back of the pack, we'll see a couple horses we're interested in. The Vinman, who I'm always interested in, the 5, and the 6, the gray horse in there, Silver Ferrari, who had a lot of trouble in the race.
Yeah, the Vinman is going to make a premature move down the backstretch or approaching the turn, and Silver Ferrari at this point, you know, just we're going to see a little bit more detail on the head-on shot after we show the race here, but you know, kind of gets bumped at the start. You're going to see him here kind of just be wide, and he's going to also encounter some bumping as he goes into the turn here and just be wide. Now we see on the screen here that Andy's favorite horse, the Vinman, getting back in the picture here.
Yeah, he's 5 or 6 wide there, and of course Miss Omoto is 4 to 5 wide, and Miss Omoto finishes well ahead of the Vinman, but the Vinman never had a chance, bumped out of position, as we'll see early at the start of the race, and making that big move. And what I found interesting about this, and the 2 horses we're showing, is this was a race that was dominated by horses making inside moves. Wild Jam, who finishes 3rd, had the perfect trip. He was inside, angled out. The horse who wins at the 4, Personal Good, was a big price. He was a little outside, but moved inside in the stretch. And the 2nd place finisher, Bossack, another horse towards the inside. So the inside movers did so well here, and that really moves up Silver Ferrari with the trouble, and it excuses the Vinman enough for me that I can lose money on him one more time, especially if he drops a little in class.
Yeah, you see Silver Ferrari finishing up okay there. Now we're going to take a look at the head-on. As I said before, both these horses have some trouble. You know, this comes a little bit more obvious with the head-on there. Silver Ferrari kind of breaks out and gets bumped a little bit. Also bumps with the Vinman, and you're going to see here the way, you know, the race unfolds. Silver Ferrari's in behind a pack of horses. The Vinman's going to come even more to the outside. It looks like he's kind of, you know, being steadied a little bit, trying to find position, and he's going to just eventually take him outside, the jockey on the Vinman here. But you see, you know, a tight pack in behind where Silver Ferrari is.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting about this race and a lot of races is you have to look at each race individually. And this race has so much going on in it. And it's one of the things that makes racing so interesting to me. And you take races apart as their race dynamics, and you say, say how the race played out, which horses did well and which horses did poorly, and did any horses overcome that sort of poor running style for the race. And for this race, you had to be towards the inside, saving ground, and sitting a little bit off the lead. Missile Motor, well, he wasn't that far off the lead. He's the most wide. The Vin Man, you could say maybe he's not good enough, but he never got himself in the race. I think things were against the Vin Man for the 5th time in a row. He gets in a sprint on a fast track against fair competition. He'll still be a good price because his form is dirtied up, and I think you can get the money with him.
Got to give some credit to the apprentices here. We saw Sebastian Morales, a perfect ride there, come up the rail, the race before Victor Santiago, also a very nice ride coming up the rail. So, you know, apprentices, I think a lot of the times they're told to save ground and they want to save ground, but sometimes that gets them into trouble. These guys got a little bit lucky in how they guess the race unfolded and stuff like that, and were able to get through. Yeah,
you know, I'll be honest, you know, Victor Santiago's won some races, and Sebastian Morales, who I had been personally very critical of to myself in seeing him, didn't love the way he'd been riding. I think he's been riding very, very well on the inner, doing a lot of the right things and the things you need to do to win.
One more race in the first segment. This was a race on New Year's Day, the second race, a maiden claiming race, and we're going to take a look at a first-time starter in here, the 9, Nicky Joe from the Kenny Stryker barn. This one took a lot of money. Actually ended up going off 11-1, but I think might have opened like 5 or 6-1. Nicky Joe, the 9 horse, bounced around at the start a little bit there, kind of just bobbled a bit, didn't break all that cleanly there, and we're going to see from this point on, Nicky Joe's going to make a little bit of a premature move here on the backstretch.
Yeah, no question. It's what we talk about with trouble at the start, how trouble at the start becomes accentuated and exaggerated because a horse can break a length or so slow or be stayed a little bit and find himself 4 or 5 lengths behind simply to no fault of its own. And in this case, Nicky Joe makes this long, sustained, premature rush up after breaking really slowly in this race and gets himself up to 4th in here. And I don't think she wasn't going to win the race, but this is not a strong field. But you know what? It's not going to be a strong field when they all get together again.
Yeah, absolutely. And another horse I was interested in here, me and Andy are disagreeing a little bit on this, is the number 6 horse Zagara. You just saw kind of take back inside there. I thought this might have cost Zagara a little bit here. I couldn't tell if it was by jockey's choice, thinking maybe the top 2 pair were going a little bit too fast, or if he just had some trouble and was tight down in there. Zagara takes back, comes 3 wide here, and tries to run a Courting Elaine. But Courting Elaine, keep in mind, was right outside of Zagara. I don't know if Zagara giving up position was such a good thing here.
See, I think it was a good choice by Jeffrey Sanchez. He saw a horse that was going to be fighting it out inside of the duel. Maybe the horse was uncomfortable, and he took a chance and let them go in front of him and then came around. And obviously it worked out in finishing second. He wasn't being the winner anyway. May he have battled it out and finished second? He stayed inside? Maybe, but I'm not sure the horse would have been comfortable doing that. I think all in all it worked out as the right decision if it was a decision on his part. Zagara is going to be the favorite when this group gets together again, and probably rightfully so. It seems that he's gotten past getting left in the gate, and he'll probably when they meet again. But a horse like Nicky Joe showed me enough in breaking slowly and making that rush-up move and getting the field. I know, she's not much horse, but none of these horses are that good. And Nicky Joe is the one that I'll be looking to try to make money with when this group gets back together.
And you would think with just a normal second-out improvement, the horse would be tougher anyway, regardless of the trip that he had first time out.
I agree, and I think that she's a very interesting horse in this group going down the road.
All right, that does it for our first segment. We'll be back in a minute or so with our second segment. Once again, the email address here. We've received tons of emails over the last few months. tripsandtraps@NaraInc.com. Both Andy and I love to hear from our fans.
Yes, we do. We'll keep the emails coming and stick around and come back for part 2 of Trips and Traps.